to start to transition to our next session, and I believe we have Natalie and Tiffany who are going to be talking about engaging students through STEAM with household items. So, Natalie,
Hi.
How are you today?
Doing well. This is my first session on here, so you might have to guide me through sharing my screen for the presentation.
That is no problem. If you hover around on your Hangout there, you should see three dots and you can share your screen. Do you see that?
I do.
And you'll just pick out the slides there when you're ready to go. Yep, starting to look good. I see slides. And if you just want to present, and Natalie, down there on that black bar, you see where it says closed captions?
I do.
If you'll click on that, it'll be helpful to some of our other folks who are joining in on the chat. So otherwise, you look great. Thanks for being here.
I'm happy to be here. And Tiffany, feel free to chime in at any time when I need to stop. I appreciate you helping me monitor the chat as we go through this. Okay, so this, as Jack introduced, is a session on engaging students through STEAM with household items. So a few norms that I want to go over for this, since we have such a short amount of time and so much that I want to share. This is both for anyone participating and viewing and for myself as well, is to stay on task. It's very easy for me to get off task and talk about things that, deviate from the presentation, so I'm going to try really hard to do that, as well as communicate professionally and respectfully, both orally with you and through the chat. And I hope that you will be willing to participate actively and ask questions so that I can help you take what you learned from the session and really implement it in your classrooms, whether it's virtually through NTI or next year when we are back in the classroom. So a little bit about me. I am a special area teacher at elementary school here in JCBS. K through 5 is the population that I serve. I'm also our STC for our building. When I'm not teaching STEAM classes, I am pulling groups of students for primary talent pool with my gifted and talented endorsement background. I also have a reading specialist license that I use occasionally with our students, and I've been with JCBS for 6 years. So that's just a little bit about me and where I'm coming from. So hopefully you have a better idea of who I am, even though we're only meeting virtually. So before I wanted to talk about what I'm doing with STEAM and our household items virtually, I wanted to give you a little sneak peek into what my classroom normally looks like when we are actually in session physically at school. Right now, our schedule revolves around a 60-minute special area rotation. 3 days a week, I have the same classes. So Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday, I will have the exact same kindergartners, first graders, second, third, fourth, and fifth, which really allows me to do in-depth projects with these students. Mondays and Fridays, those are a little bit different. I usually do technology projects for one day, or art, or some of that time is where I pull those primary talent pool students. As you can see in the picture on my slide, I use a lot of flexible seating, and the table arrangements allow for a lot of group work. With the amount of materials we go through with each class, it's just a lot more feasible and affordable to do as many group projects as I can. I do try to incorporate individual work when possible, but like I mentioned, when looking at classroom supplies, sometimes it gets really costly. So that typical 3-day STEAM project unit that I follow has a very simple and generic structure to it. On the first day, I always try to incorporate a read aloud, whether it's fictional or nonfiction, because I think literacy can always add to any lesson, regardless of the content area. I use an anchor chart that has important pictures, vocabulary, background knowledge that I want the students to understand. And then we work together to complete a 4-square activity sheet based on that first round of knowledge that I had just introduced to them. On the second day, instead of being so direct instruction, I have QR codes set up around the room for students to work in pairs with the iPads to scan and watch videos, read articles, and do interactive web pages. That kind of helps deepen that initial background knowledge that I'm trying to build in them for their project, and we do a little fact reporting. Depending on the age and the grade level, this is as simple as me walking around the classroom as they're watching these scanned videos and articles and just checking in with them. What are you learning? What questions do you have? Is there something confusing? Sometimes they take notes on what they're learning. And then on the third day, they get to take all the knowledge that they've acquired over the first 2 days and design and build a challenge based off of what was presented at the beginning, and then reflect. As much as I would like to take full credit for all of this, I did not create all the units and lessons that I used. So at the bottom of this slide, you can see where I've linked the curriculum that I have found online from a wonderful teacher. Her name is Brooke Brown. She has a blog called Teach Outside the Box, where she is both a STEM specialist and a gifted and talented specialist. So a lot of her ideas really coincide with my teaching style. Tiffany, do we have any questions or comments yet so far?
Not so far, just people saying that they are glad to be in here watching your presentation.
Awesome. Thank you. All right, so here's a few visuals to go along with that 3-day model that I just told you about. So one of my favorite units that I've done this year, and this was in the classroom, the traditional classroom, was learning about forces of flight with my kindergartners and first graders. And I'm not going to lie, I was very intimidated when I approached this topic, wondering if it was going to be too much of a challenge for them to be able to comprehend. There were some very big vocabulary words and a lot to understand to learn about flying, but they were quick. They were able to memorize those words. I would be able to say thrust, and as a class or individually, they could point upward and let me know that that was the direction that that force worked, or drag, and they could tell me backwards or point backwards. Gravity, they were pointing down and saying pull down, and then lift, they could say up. So it was really cool that even though they couldn't quite regurgitate the definitions that were provided to them, that they were grasping the concept. And then on the right, you can see one of those 4 squares that I talked about that we would work as a class through, where they write some facts down. In this case, with the younger kiddos, we just wrote the words. And then it was really neat to see how they were able to apply these forces of flight to other things that they were able to recognize. You can see in that bottom picture where it says other things that use forces of flight, this student drew a helicopter. So that was really creative. They were able to make those connections, and this is just another way that as I'm teaching, I can progress monitor if they're grasping those concepts. Here's a picture of the QR code corner that I have. You can see that it's been broken up into 4th and 5th grade, 2nd and 3rd grade, and K and 1. And then in addition to having them all just in this one corner, I do put extra pages of the QR codes around the room so they're not all crowded. And you can see in this example where students are going up and scanning with the iPad, and they're working with their partner to continue to build that background knowledge using the video information. And then this is the fun day that they are all excited about, the design, build, and reflect day. On the opposite side of their 4-square paper, there'll be always an opportunity for them to draw a blueprint of some sort of their model, and then either some facts or other questions to make sure that they've still retained that initial information, and then opportunity to test and reflect their designs. So in these 2 pictures, this is a group of 3rd graders who were learning about slingshots through potential and kinetic energy. And so they designed their slingshot. You can see them measuring how far it was shooting. They were writing down in their little chart at the bottom the distances for their 3 tests. And then they had some reflection questions off to the side. So again, this is just a little peek into what my traditional style of STEAM lessons are at school. I do provide all the materials for them at school. I give them usually in partners or in groups these supplies. I don't tell them exactly how to design with the materials they're given. I want them to have a lot of freedom. I want them to get creative. I don't want them stuck in one image of what it should look like. Now, with that being said, I don't just leave them hanging. If I notice that a certain group or even the entire class is struggling to get started or to create a design, I might begin a design of my own to get them started or get them thinking. Sometimes on some of the really tough challenges, I'll give them a 5-second peek where I'll show them a picture of a completed example for 5 seconds. So I do scaffold that based on their needs, but I really try not to show them ahead of time what the end result should or could look like, because there really is no right or wrong answer, and I want them to be able to have that creative time. How are we doing in the chat, Tiffany?
You're good.
Okay, well, we will keep going. So here's how I've transitioned this to NTI with my students. Luckily, all the challenges that I've done so far, K through 5th grade, have followed that 3-day pattern where they're very familiar with the Foursquare and the reflection and blueprint sheet and using QR codes and vocabulary words on the chart. So this wasn't a huge learning curve for my students, and I'm very thankful for that. So I have kept these same similar projects and styles for my 3rd through 5th graders. They use the same type of challenges that they would have in the regular classroom. The materials become optional, and I had to reiterate this with our families several times in the beginning just to ease some nerves, that the materials suggested aren't necessarily required. I encourage them to get creative and use the things that they have in their homes, and that the list is just a suggestion. I also don't do the read aloud. As much as I enjoy connecting literacy to this unit or to STEAM projects, I find that their time is valuable. I don't want to cut into what is already being expected of them from their homeroom teachers, so I've eliminated that. I no longer have an anchor chart that I go over with the students, but in place of these things, there is a Google Slides version of both the Foursquare paper, the design and reflection page, and then a few other slides that I'm getting ready to show you. So hopefully you can see the similarities to these slides of the sheets that we work on in class. So one of the first online challenges I gave these students, the 3rd through 5th graders, was the egg drop challenge. And you can see here at the top where it kind of gives a scenario, and then there's the challenge. Construct a protective container that will keep your egg from breaking when it's dropped. Very open-ended, no criteria for how big it should be or what it should be made out of. Now at the bottom is that recommended materials list, but I always again reiterate, you don't have to use this. I even had some students that didn't have eggs at home that they could use, and so I challenged them to get creative. Find something that you don't want to break, something that you're willing to risk in your container that you want to drop and try to protect. Then I show them this Foursquare slide of words to know. This is the replacement that I have found really helpful for the anchor chart that I typically do. It kind of gives them some vocabulary words and some background knowledge that they should be able to understand to really create their project. And then this is where we've kind of replaced that Foursquare QR code scanning sheet. So these are the exact same videos that actually, if you were to edit this slide and move those videos that are embedded, you would see the QR codes behind them. So again, very familiar process to the students where they can continue to build this background knowledge. So before they get to the design stage, they really understand what might work well and what they need to do. And then here is the electronic slides version of that Foursquare recording sheet. I've just added some text box and some numbered points to kind of guide them through their thinking. And then here is their other recording sheet where I've given them the opportunity that if drawing is too difficult, they can just list what materials they use, they can insert pictures, they can circle yes or no if it broke. And so now I'm just going to show you a few different ways that students are completing this successfully. And there's quite a variety in their capabilities, and all are equally appropriate and acceptable and show great understanding of the content. Oh, and one more slide this is our reflection slide. Usually this is what we discuss as a class, so I encourage them just to think about it at home. Some students go above and beyond and actually respond to the questions, but it's not required. So here's some examples. Here's one student who did all of it electronically. You can see that he typed in purple what his answers were. He included some pictures. Now this is not for the egg drop challenge. This is a different challenge, but he inserted pictures in his slide and was able to type his answers. Here's another student who did it like we traditionally do at school. He printed out his sheet and was able to draw on there, write on there. And as you can see, he modified it. It challenged him to measure this project in cubes, and he crossed it out and wrote Legos. He was going to measure it in Legos, which is perfectly fine and a great creative way for him to adapt this for what he has at home. And then some students are really into the technology and wanted to use their own Google Drawings or the shapes in Google Slides to design and show their answers. So, Tiffany, do we have any comments or questions so far about intermediate work and students?
Mostly you just had some praises. They like how you frame it as challenges, which makes it fun from the start. They like that there's no right or wrong way, which helps with innovation. And yeah, so lots of praises. Great job.
Yeah, Natalie, these are fantastic. I love your flexibility with kids and how you'll, encourage them to use whatever's available to them. And especially like this example you're showing right now with integrating Google Drawings. It's one of my favorite Google tools. So love to see it demonstrated here.
Yeah, so I'm really happy about that too. I'm glad you noticed that. And as we are transitioning still through NTI, I know we're in the 4th week of it now, but it's still something that's new and intimidating to our families. And so I definitely don't want any of my challenges or projects to come across overwhelming or daunting. And I think for the most part, the majority of the feedback I've gotten is how fun this has been for a lot of our families to take a break from traditional style work. And a lot of the videos and pictures that I've been receiving through submissions have had the whole family involved. So I think hopefully this is something that most people are enjoying while they're still learning all these awesome Google Suite tools. So thanks for that. Now we're going to look at what I do for our primary students. Although at school they do use the same challenges that I just shared with our intermediate students, when it comes to technology, they just simply need more help and more assistance. And I felt that doing all those slides and all those videos and different things was just asking too much of our primary families. So I decided to deviate a little bit with this group of students. They still have challenges, and I'm going to show you how they're a little bit different, but yet similar at the same time. Again, I did not create something on my own. There was no need to reinvent the wheel. I have linked right here some free STEM menus that are online that you can use with your students that just provide a grid or a choice board of just different challenges, even more generic than the ones that I showed previously, where there's no materials even listed, that our primary students have really enjoyed. So this is what they see on their Google Classrooms, which is what we're mostly using here at my school. It tells them we're on choice board number 1, week number 1, choose 2 activities to complete. And so it's very, very similar and familiar for them. Choice number 1, they can type on that line at the top what they chose. They can put in pictures or words to explain what they did. And choice number 2, and that's all it is. So I just wanted, again, like our intermediate students, just show you the wide variety of work that I'm receiving back. Obviously, with some of these younger kids, it's evident that their families are helping them complete this, which is totally fine. I love the family engagement. One of the challenges from our first week was to create an amusement park ride. This is one of our kindergartners who I was just blown away by her attention to detail. I know her family helped her put the words into the slide, but she did this entire creation nearly on her own. She made a carousel ride out of paper and folded material and tinfoil and pom-poms. And so you can see in her pictures that she's just so proud of her amusement park carousel ride, which was super creative. There wasn't a whole lot of background knowledge on this. There wasn't a whole lot of expectation or guidance of what to use. But with these younger students, I just wanted to focus on getting them creating with their hands, using materials, and having fun. Here's another one that a student did for the same challenge, design an amusement park, and you can see the wide variety of time and resources put into this, and it's still wonderful. This is another kindergarten. He wanted to replicate Kings Island. He has a flying roller coaster and a water slide and a sign that measures how tall you need to be on the ride. And you can see that he created his all on a piece of paper, which was wonderful.
Yeah, I have a suspicion since that's a kindergartner, his how tall you need to be is probably a little bit different than the ones we see in real life. That's a source of contention in our house.
He might have had some experience with those signs and wanted to make sure that his design was perfectly accessible by everyone. And then the one other thing I wanted to mention is sometimes our families, especially their primary families, just opt out of the Google slide deck altogether and they just submit pictures or videos, which is totally fine. And sometimes they send them to me via email too. Again, totally fine. I really wanted to be flexible and enjoyable and not stressful for them in this experience. So now I'm going to just share some tips and tricks about all of this together that I think could be applied to both STEM activities and anything that we're doing during this NTI time. The first and foremost one is flexible materials, meaning that there's no right or wrong materials that they can use, that they can get creative. Think about what the challenge is asking you to do and have at it. Whatever you have around your house, try to use it and have fun with it. My second recommendation is to use a consistent format. For example, when my intermediate kids see that same style of slides where they know that they're going to be presented their challenge, they're going to be given vocabulary words, they're going to have about 4 videos or articles or pages to look at to build their background knowledge. They're going to have a 4 square to complete to show that they've understood the major concepts, and then they're going to have that last page where they can insert pictures and answer some questions about how successful their design was. Third, I want to mention an extended or loose deadline. I do put due dates on my assignments in Google Classroom because the parents have shared that it's easier to find assignments when they're sorted by when they're due, but I don't hold them to that. If they are busy and they are overwhelmed and both parents are working, whenever they can get it to me, great. If they can't get it to me this week, that's fine too. Or maybe they can't complete 2 challenges from the menu board, only 1. Whatever they choose is perfectly fine. Same with the alternative submission. Some parents, their homeroom teachers use class tag or class dojo or different things like that, or even email, and they just find it easier to send it to me through those avenues, which is perfectly fine too. I don't want anyone to feel forced to do it a certain way. I want this to be a fun, engaging learning experience, like I mentioned before, and something that's not stressful. Additionally, I like to stay regularly in communication with them. I love to give feedback. I love to share and comment on what they send to me and what they post. I love to compliment their work. Occasionally, I'll give them some constructive feedback if it's something that they're looking for. That's usually more for our intermediate kids. But overall, I just love to praise and share positive reinforcement that they are doing a great job, that they're working hard, and that seems to really build the morale around these experiences. And the one final thing I wanted to share that I've gotten the most feedback on is creating instructional videos. I have used Screencastify, and those are direct links that you can click on in this slide deck that will take you to videos that show you how to navigate Google Classroom specifically with the slide decks that I had created. So in the intermediate one, I used one of the lessons. I went through and showed them where to click, where to type their answers, how to watch the videos, how to insert pictures, and then finally how to turn it in or finally submit their finished slide deck. With the primary one, I did very similar. I used the template that they have on there where they can type in their name, they can type in choice one, I showed them how to insert pictures or videos. I even showed them how they can use the audio recording if their child is unable to type, but they want their student to be more involved in that component, then they can voice record what they're saying and different things like that to show them how to complete it and turn it in. And at the beginning of NTI, that's what I got the most feedback on, was how helpful it was to be able to have a little tutorial of the exact format of what we were looking to use. Tiffany, how are we doing in the chat?
Great. Everybody's just talking about how they really like how you put examples on Twitter of what your kids are actually showing you or completing. So keep doing that, and everything else seems very positive. So keep up the great work.
Awesome, thank you. Yeah, we actually have a private Facebook page for just our school, and so the parents and families and students are really enjoying. I'm also sharing those on there so that they can kind of see what their classmates are doing and what fun ideas other people have. So I'm going to continue to share those because it's a lot of fun for me. I almost feel selfish keeping it all to myself. The highlight of my day when I get new submissions. So one last thing I wanted to talk about was prior to NCI, when we had those 2 weeks in spring break, before we really had a plan for what we were doing, I did household material experiments and projects on my Facebook page, Stay with Ms. Schmidt, which is linked right there. So if anybody is looking for just some fun ideas that they want to share with their students or their families, it's stuff that's intentionally chosen to use minimal material, stuff that your families can hopefully find around their home and engage their students with. And right below my Facebook link, I've also linked where I found some experiment ideas and art lessons. Again, this is not anything that I've entirely created on my own. Most of these things I've found and tweaked to meet my needs, so I just want to keep sharing the wealth of the things that I've found. So if that's something that you or your school is interested in, please check out that Facebook page. I've got all my live lessons where I give some scientific background and then walk students through how to do it. So that's just one more resource for you. And then lastly, I just wanted to spend the last couple minutes opening up for questions or comments. How can I support anyone during this NTI time with implementing any kind of project-based learning or STEM into their units? And then my contact information both on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. If anybody wants to follow me or share ideas or collaborate, the floor is open. Thank you all so much for inviting me to join you all here on the Digital Learning Channel. It's been a great way for me to learn from my colleagues, and hopefully some of you all can learn from me as well.
Natalie, that was fantastic. I know, at least personally, I'm going to get on the digital learning matrix and get these slides, because I know what I'm going to do this weekend with at home with my own kids. So
no people busy.
That's for sure. There were so many great examples, and Tiffany, I really appreciate your help with monitoring the chat. I know we've got some of my own teammates there. Dr. Coleman is a huge fan of the two of you, so just really appreciate that, and the fact that you all are so willing to provide rigor to those younger students in K1. It was really impressive to see your Forces of Flight lesson and those examples with kids. I know that our my elementary teammates really try to push K2 teachers to integrate technology, and so it was good to see that you're doing the same. And we got a little shout out in the chat for KCAN 2 as well. So appreciate that.
Yeah, I'm not gonna lie, it was very intimidating when I moved to this role. I had no experience with kindergarten or first graders, so it was a learning curve for me to figure out what can they do, what are their limitations. But I was very pleasantly surprised at how successful they can be when you just give them the opportunity.
Absolutely. So just super impressive. All those examples were fantastic to see that. And I think the big takeaway is was on the chat, all over the chat, and what you and Tiffany said. But just to drive that home was the grace and flexibility that you have as a teacher. It's important in person, but even more important now that we are going through all of this and in NTI. Two great, I don't know, features of you as a teacher.
Thank you, Jack. I appreciate that. Well, I'm going to stop now because I know our next group is ready to rock my awesome friends in the Gifted and Talented department. So I will turn it over to them.
Yep.
Thank you for having me.
Yep. Thanks, Natalie. Appreciate it, Tiffany.